What is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video at hand, and today I want to talk to you guys about my favorite consoles to collect for and why. Now, as you can imagine, I've been collecting video games for a very long time, and just like most collectors, there are some consoles that I prefer to collect for more when compared to others. Now, of course, in this video, I'm not going to rank these consoles in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to do my least favorite to my most favorite, or from the most expensive to the cheapest. These are just consoles that happen to be my favorite, and I'm just going to throw them out there in this video. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video subject and take a look around the game room while I talk about some of my most favorite consoles to collect for and why, right after the intro. Alright, so I'm going to start this video off pretty strong by talking about one of my most favorite game consoles to collect for and why, with the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 is easily my favorite console of all time. Right here are my loose games. However, I do have games that are complete in box here in the game room, and it is one of my personal goals to go for a complete set for the Nintendo 64 one day. Now, I do have more 64 games, but these are just the ones that I have out on display in the game room, so you're not going to see my entire collection for the Nintendo 64 in this video. The reason why the Nintendo 64 is one of my favorite consoles to collect for is not only because of nostalgia, but because I think it has a fantastic library. I feel like there is more quality than quantity when it comes to the games. Yes, there are games such as Superman 64 in the library, but I would be willing to argue if you were to throw all the games up on a dartboard of the Nintendo 64 library, I'm going to say about 9 times out of 10, you're going to hit something that is absolutely worth playing. So for those reasons, the 64 is one of my favorite consoles to collect for. Now, another favorite of mine to collect for is the Xbox 360. I've had so many great memories playing on the 360 back in the day with games such as Halo 3, Gears of War, Fable 2. It just has such a great library of games. Another reason of mine that I love collecting for the Xbox 360 is because it is such a cheap console to collect for. I've gotten so many deals easily online, locally, when it comes to collecting for the Xbox 360. And although I don't have every single game out on display, I do have all the games that I would be interested in playing sometime in the near future out on display. So of course, with such a great library of games and with how cheap the console is to collect for, it is easily a favorite of mine to get some games for. Now, this is a console that is not cheap to collect for, but it is also another console I wish to get a complete set for one day, and that is the Nintendo GameCube. Now, this console, I do have all of my games out on display, and this is another one I've had a lot of fantastic memories playing with. Again, so many great games on the GameCube, whether you are playing games such as Super Smash Bros. Melee, Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, even more obscure exclusive titles such as Chibi Robo. I feel like the GameCube, even though it didn't have all the fancy features that the PS2 and the original Xbox had back during the 6th generation of gaming, Nintendo certainly made up for it with all the fantastic games that are on the GameCube. It is truly one of my favorite game consoles of all time, so for those reasons, I have to get a complete set for it, and of course, that is also why I love collecting for the GameCube. Now, another favorite of mine when it comes to collecting games is the original Xbox. I believe this console I neglected on heavily back in the day because I was more focused on the GameCube and the PlayStation 2, and what I was interested in playing was much different than my tastes in video games now. And now going back on the original Xbox, I feel that there are so many great games I missed on back then, such as Fable and Panzer Dragoon Orta. Of course, what's really nice about collecting this console is that all the games are really cheap. Maybe not all, but I would argue that most of the library is relatively affordable, and you can pick up such great games such as Blinx the Time Sweeper, MechAssault, of course, Halo, a big heavy hitter from back in the day on the original Xbox. I absolutely love collecting for this console. Now, this is a console that I believe flew under the radar back in the day, and it is unfortunate that it is very expensive to collect for, and that is the Sega Saturn. Why I love the Sega Saturn so much is because I believe it has so many great games on it that unfortunately did not get the love and attention that they deserved back in the day, with titles such as Nights into Dreams, Panzer Dragoon, Daytona USA, and of course games such as Virtual On. With the Sega Saturn, I plan to hopefully one day go for a complete set for the Saturn one day, but of course, since we are talking about a relatively expensive console to collect for, I'm going to have to go nice, slow, and steady when building up that library, but I certainly hope one day I can get a full North American set of the Sega Saturn. Now guys, another favorite console of mine of all time is the Sega Dreamcast. The Sega Dreamcast is also the second video game console that I ever owned, so there's quite a bit of some emotional attachment when it comes to the Dreamcast. Why I also love collecting for the Dreamcast is because I believe it has such a phenomenal library of games such as Sonic Adventure 2, Crazy Taxi, Space Channel 5, among so many other great games on the console. It even has my favorite game of all time, which is Sonic Adventure 2. Now, it is a personal goal of mine by the end of this year to have a complete North American Sega Dreamcast set. Now, unfortunately, I don't remember at the top of my head of how many games I have exactly for the console, but I do know for a fact that I do own more than half of the console's library when it comes to North American releases. I just love this thing so much, and I always love grabbing some games, putting it onto this shelf, and seeing the library grow closer and closer to finally reaching completion one day. Now, of course, I gotta mention this console right here in the video, and that is the PlayStation 2. I feel like the PlayStation 2 has literally something for everyone on this console. And of course, with a console with easily one of the largest game libraries, if not the largest game library out there, there's literally something out there for everyone. Of course, with this console, this is another cheap one to collect for. You'll have no trouble at all finding good deals for games, especially like at yard sales. And then, of course, if you want to look at thrift stores, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, and then when you go online too, you can find some pretty decent deals for PS2 games too. Again, so many great ones on there, such as God of War, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank. There's just so many great games on this console. Now, I don't think I'll go for a complete set for this console. At least I won't go out of my way for it, because we are talking about a console that has over 1,850 games for it. I gotta say, that's a lot of work if you're gonna go for a complete set for this thing. I mean, it is a cool console, not my personal favorite, but I do like it for what it is. Lots of great games on it. Again, another one I grew up with. But of course, for those reasons, this is another one that I really enjoy collecting some games for. Now, as we go back to a familiar part of the game room, I want to talk to you guys about the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is another game console that has a fantastic library of games, with games such as Mega Man X, Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, F-Zero, Star Fox, of course, Super Mario Kart. I mean, these are some pretty big heavy hitters right there from the 90s, and I would argue that you would be very hard pressed to find a game collector that doesn't like the Super Nintendo. Of course, when you talk about retro gaming, it's very hard not to think of or talk about the Super Nintendo, and I really enjoy collecting for this is because just so many great games for it. And of course, just like the Nintendo 64 right here in this section of the game room, you're not going to see my entire library of Super Nintendo games, but right here in this section, you know, I've got all the heavy hitters that I would want to pop out and play from time to time. Of course, the games that I've mentioned from before, of course, you've got Doom, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 2, so many great games on this console. I love collecting for the Super Nintendo. So many great games. You just gotta love it. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.